Thousands of ancient churches survive across Europe and the Middle East. Most have been studied for centuries. Their histories are documented. Their builders are known. But in 2019, researchers investigating a remote mountain valley stumbled across something that should not have existed at all. Hidden behind a rockslide, sealed away from the world, stood an ancient church untouched by time. What they found inside was not just a forgotten place of worship. It was evidence of a mystery that had remained buried for nearly 1,000 years. And the deeper they explored, the more disturbing the discovery became. The valley sits in one of the most isolated regions of eastern Anatolia. Towering cliffs surround it on all sides. For much of the year, heavy snow makes the area nearly impossible to reach. Few people lived there, and even fewer outsiders ever visited. In the summer of 2019, a team of archaeologists arrived to investigate reports of unusual stone formations exposed after a series of landslides. Local shepherds had noticed sections of carved masonry protruding from a cliff face after heavy rains had washed away part of the mountainside. At first, nobody expected anything significant. Ancient ruins are not uncommon in the region. Centuries of civilizations had risen and fallen there. Most discoveries turned out to be fragments of walls, foundations, or abandoned settlements. But this site was different. As workers carefully cleared debris from the exposed stonework, they uncovered the top of an archway, then another. Within days, it became clear they were looking at the entrance to a large structure buried almost entirely beneath rock and earth. The entrance had been sealed for centuries. The discovery immediately attracted attention from historians and archaeologists across the country. Ground-penetrating radar suggested a substantial complex hidden behind the collapsed mountainside. Nobody knew how large it was. Nobody knew who built it. And nobody knew what remained inside. Excavation crews spent nearly 6 weeks removing tons of debris from the entrance. Progress was painfully slow. Every stone had to be documented and stabilized before it could be moved. Finally, the opening was large enough for a small team to enter. What they found exceeded every expectation. The interior was remarkably well preserved. Rows of stone columns stretched into the darkness. Arched ceilings towered overhead. Faded murals still clung to sections of the walls despite centuries of isolation. The church appeared frozen in time. Dust covered every surface, but there was surprisingly little evidence of looting or vandalism. It was as if the building had simply been abandoned and forgotten. Researchers carefully moved deeper into the structure. Near the center of the sanctuary, they discovered an altar unlike anything they had anticipated. Carved from a single block of black basalt, the altar was covered with symbols that did not match any known Christian tradition from the region. Some resembled crosses. Others appeared completely unfamiliar. The carvings seemed to combine Christian imagery with symbols from far older belief systems. That was the first sign something unusual had happened here. The second sign was even stranger. Behind the altar, hidden beneath a collapsed section of flooring, archaeologists uncovered a sealed chamber. The chamber was small, barely large enough for several people to stand inside. Yet its contents immediately raised new questions. Dozens of manuscripts lay stacked inside stone containers. Many had deteriorated beyond recovery. Others remained astonishingly intact. The documents were written in multiple languages. Some contained passages from known religious texts. Others appeared entirely unknown. Experts spent months attempting to translate them. Several manuscripts described a religious community that had lived in extreme isolation during the 11th century. According to the texts, the community believed they were protecting something of immense importance. But the manuscripts never clearly explained what that something was. Instead, they repeatedly referred to it using the same phrase, the hidden truth. Nobody knew what it meant. As translations continued, the mystery deepened. The manuscripts described growing fear among the church's inhabitants. Several entries spoke of warnings received from neighboring settlements. Others mentioned visitors arriving from distant regions, seeking access to the church. The records suggested that whatever the community was protecting had attracted dangerous attention. Then the writings suddenly stopped. No final entry, no explanation, no record of what happened next. The community simply vanished from history. Researchers turned their attention back to the church itself. That was when they made another discovery. Hidden behind a section of decorative stonework near the rear wall, they found a narrow passage leading deeper into the mountain. The passage had not appeared on any survey. In fact, it seemed deliberately concealed. The corridor descended for nearly 200 feet beneath the church. The deeper investigators traveled, the colder the air became. Eventually, they reached a second chamber. Unlike the sanctuary above, this room contained no religious artwork, no murals, no decorations, no inscriptions. Only dozens of stone shelves lining the walls. And on those shelves sat hundreds of small sealed containers. Many were broken, others remained untouched. Inside, researchers found fragments of documents, religious objects, coins, and personal belongings. The collection appeared less like a treasury and more like an archive. Someone had been preserving information, large amounts of information, almost as if they feared it might otherwise disappear forever. Then investigators noticed something else. Several containers showed signs of deliberate destruction. Pages had been burned, names had been scraped away, entire sections of text had been removed. Whoever sealed the church had not simply hidden knowledge. They had also tried to erase parts of it. That discovery transformed the entire investigation. The question was no longer why the church had been hidden. The question became why certain information inside it had been deliberately destroyed. Historians began comparing the surviving texts with records from neighboring regions. Patterns emerged. References to the church appeared briefly in several medieval documents before disappearing completely. In some cases, entire passages seemed to have been removed from later copies of historical records. Mentions of the isolated community became increasingly rare over time until they vanished altogether. It was as though someone had intentionally erased them from history. But why? No definitive answer has ever been found. Some researchers believe the church may have belonged to a religious sect considered controversial during its time. Others suggest political conflicts could have made its members targets for persecution. A few theories are even more unsettling. According to one interpretation, the community may have possessed information viewed as dangerous by powerful authorities. Information significant enough to justify destroying records and removing every trace of their existence. The truth remains unknown. Today, much of the church has been stabilized and preserved. Archaeologists continue studying the manuscripts and artifacts recovered from the site. New translations occasionally reveal additional clues, but none have solved the central mystery. Who built the hidden church? What exactly were they protecting? Why was so much information deliberately erased? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why did an entire community choose to bury itself beneath a mountain rather than allow the outside world to reach what lay inside? Somewhere among the surviving manuscripts, the answer may still exist, waiting quietly in the dark, just as it has for nearly 1,000 years. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more history mysteries.